In the current debate on Islam, people unfortunately fail to understand that Islam is not just a religion. Islam is a culture, and it is this culture that I study. My research specifically concentrates on the 13th to the 16th century. That was the time of the Mongol conquest up to the establishment of regional states by the Ottomans, Safavids and Mughals. The intellectual history of this period is very hard to grasp because, on the one hand, the sources have not yet been edited, let alone translated. On the other, many texts are not main texts in the sense of writing a new book, but commentaries. The sheer editing and appropriate presentation of these commentaries is technically very difficult and a huge responsibility.
Judith Pfeiffer is considered one of the leading specialists in the intellectual history of the Mongolian Empire in the pre-modern era. She focuses, amongst other things, on the conversion of migrant Mongols and leaders to Islam, analysing Persian, Arab and Ottoman sources. Her research base for many years has been Oxford University, an inspiring location, not just for historians.
In its historicity, Oxford is fascinating and also pleasing aesthetically. One can feel its history on every corner.
At the very heart of the university is the Bodleian Library, opened in 1602. Judith Pfeiffer in the oldest and most famous part of the complex, Duke Humphrey's Library. Valuable medieval tomes line the wooden shelves of the reading room. Other treasures await the Islam scholar in the Bodleian archives.
The library itself holds about 3,500 Arab and about 5,000 Islamic manuscripts. Not a particularly large number, but it is a very good selection. The librarians of previous centuries did a very competent previewing job.
Professor Pfeiffer has been teaching and conducting research at St. Cross College since 2003. In her seminars, she seeks to elucidate the fascinating interdependencies between the Mongols and the peoples they defeated, with a special emphasis on their conversion to the new religion of Islam, which significantly changed the Mongols' way of life. In return, the converts, for their part, also exerted an influence on Islamic theology, and this had ripple effects, reaching as far as politics and jurisprudence. But how did the conversion to Islam from Iran via Syria and Anatolia to Iraq really take place?
The Mongols did not come alone. They came with a host of Turkish and Mongolian tribes that gave them military support. And what my research has actually shown is that the Gengizid upper class, the real rulers, did not convert to the religion of the people they conquered. But the Gengizids, the ruling dynasty, practiced the Islam of these Turkish-Mongolian tribes.
Such as the Mongolian provincial ruler Mahmud Ghazan. He converted to Islam in 1292 and was able to extend his power in Persia and reform the country. In order to keep alive the memory of their nomadic roots, Ghazan commissioned Rashid ad-Din, a converted Jew, to write a history of the Mongols. The vizier and scholar, who had grown rich under Ghazan, established a cultural center, which is described in his foundation deed. He also had his theological writings copied, which made the Mongols more familiar with Islam. The interests of culture and power were closely related.
Rashid ad-Din and his big deed are a perfect example of turning a huge accumulation of wealth and land into an institution that not only serves the common good, but also the intellectual development of the Islamic world. In this particular case, he prioritized his own books and awarded stipends to ensure that both Persian and Arabic versions of his works were disseminated all over the Islamic world.
First and foremost, the Compendium of Chronicles, Under Ghazan's successor, Ülcetu, Rashid ad-Din expanded his history of the Mongols to embrace the entire known world, from China to Europe. In doing so, he used the narrative voice of the respective peoples, thus facilitating a parallel historiography. Judith Pfeiffer is working on an edition of the scholar's forgotten works and on a monograph, a major research project that the historian is taking with her to the University of Bonn. In the framework of her Humboldt Professorship, she will also set up a research school on Islamic intellectual history to shed more light on the period from the 12th to the 16th centuries, a vision that is dependent on accessing the sources and on the local environment.
Bonn
is like a smaller version of Oxford. Just like Oxford, it covers the entire spectrum from Islamic studies to Scientology, and the synergies there are fantastic. I hope to be able to use the Humboldt Professorship to set up a small school where intensive research can be done, where colleagues who can take the time to really produce a solid critical edition of key texts will be most welcome. This is something that would be very, very important and can shine a bright spotlight on today's debates.